Another year has come and gone, so let's look back and rate my lowest to highest rated games that I reviewed this year. Remember, these are games that I reviewed this year, and that doesn't mean that they came out this year, though most of them did. Now let's get into it. Starting off at number 11 with my lowest reviewed game is going to be Breakwaters at a 2.7 out of 5. Breakwaters is a beautiful game with an impressive ocean and water physics system. Unfortunately, that's about as far as the praise goes. The game is riddled with bugs, glitches, and lag, and while it never did become unplayable, and honestly, even though my friends and I found some of the issues pretty funny, it does hurt the overall experience. On top of that, the game simply lacks content. What there is can be completed in just a few hours, leaving very little to do and very little reason to stick around. Because of that, this game I'd only recommend checking out when it's on sale. Number 10 on the list is going to be Polylythic at a 2.8 out of 5. Set in the Neolithic era and full of polygons. Yeah, I wonder how they came up with that name. The game was genuinely fun for a few days that I played it, with a solid hunting mechanic, enjoyable exploration, and some light questing to keep things moving. That being said, it is clearly rough around the edges, and the experience is held back by what feels like unfinished content, along with frequent bugs and errors that halted the progress entirely, or at times made the game look outright terrible. I hope the developers iron out these issues and take criticism seriously, because there is a good foundation here. With polish and fixes, Polylythic can turn into a genuinely fun game in the future. At number 9, we have Icarus at a 2.9 out of 5. Icarus had some things going for it and other aspects that annoyed me more than anything else. The core systems work and the game looks great visually, but where it falls flat is really how much content feels paywalled, especially when it comes to the meaningful progression and variety. Exploration feels like an afterthought, and the map lacks any interesting points of interest. Most of the biomes play out like long hallways rather than open, engaging spaces. Unfortunately, because of those design choices, I don't really see this game getting much better than it is right now. At number 8, we have RuneScape: The Dragon Wilds. It has some fun ideas, but my biggest criticism is the setting. I'm not a fan of the fact that it doesn't take place in the Gelinor map. For a game set in the RuneScape universe, this new location just doesn't hit the same. That with the lack of traditional questing, though there are some that you can find in the game right now. That being said, the overall gameplay and combat are fun. The building is completely feasible and has improved a lot since my original review. However, my concerns about getting stun-locked and being overwhelmed by random encounters are still there. Farming is also being added soon, which is a welcomed update, especially since I already made room for it in my base. Other than that, it was an okay experience. I just wish there was a little bit more to it. At number 7, we have Dawn of Defiance with a 4 out of 5. Dawn of Defiance is an interesting take on the survival genre, where traditional survival mechanics take a backseat and focus more on exploration, gathering, and combat. The combat itself isn't that bad, and I enjoyed encountering the creatures of Greek mythology nearly around every corner. The game clearly has potential as it moves closer into its full release, and it could turn into something much better than it is right now. Though I still have the issue of the intro being a little bit too long and might push away some new players from wanting to try it and seeing it to its full potential. Coming in at number 6, also at a 4.0, we have Monster Hunter Wilds. Wilds is a bit of a tough one for me. I originally rated it a 4 out of 5, but I'm amending that score down to a 3 out of 5. I am a huge Monster Hunter fan, and unfortunately Wilds sits below average when it's compared to the rest of the series. To put that into perspective, I used to think that the 4th generation of Monster Hunter was the weakest point in the franchise's life cycle, but just last month I booted up my old old handheld, and I played Monster Hunter Cross, also known as Generations, for a while I was out of town, and even though I didn't love every combat change that the game offered, the game still had the depth and systems that made up the identity of Monster Hunter. Wilds, on the other hand, feels like a stripped-down version of the formula. A lot of what made the previous games great has been watered down in an attempt to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and ironically, that's what pushed many players back to World instead. On top of that, the developers seemed more focused on adding cosmetic content rather than addressing the real problems like poor optimization and lingering bugs. Because of that, my concerns from my original video just haven't remained, they've amplified. The game isn't terrible, but for a Monster Hunter title, it falls short of what the series is capable of. Coming in at number 5, we also have Monster Hunter Tri at a 4.0. Monster Hunter Tri is a great example of an old school Monster Hunter title from the 3rd generation and remains one of my favorites in the entire series, right next to World. I recently replayed and reviewed it as a retro title, and while it absolutely has its share of old school jank, it's pretty much a product of its time, but despite that, it was still incredibly fun and reminded me of why I fell in love with Monster Hunter in the first place. The underwater combat definitely is controversial in the fanbase, but I am firmly on the side that enjoys it. I think it adds a layer to the hunts that no other game in the series can really replicate. Even World's compromise of fighting monsters waist deep in the water without fully swimming doesn't really come close. And no, the Lagiacrus in Wild does not have underwater combat, not even comparable to what Tri offered. Because of that, this game I highly recommend to a newer Monster Hunter player who would want to see what the series is all about in its full glory. Number 4 is going to be Grounded 2, coming at a 4.5 out of 5. Grounded 2 is the sequel to an excellent survival game and one of my personal favorites, but does it live up to the original? Not quite yet, but the foundation is absolutely there. The first Grounded launched with far less content and grew into something massive over time. Grounded 2 feels like it's following that same path. Right now, the game leans heavily into its story and introduces new mount systems called buggies, finally letting you ride certain insects, at least 2 to start with. Combat has also felt updated, making it feel easier to spec into different playstyles, whether you want to be tanky, focus on magic, or play ranged. My main criticism is that some of the systems that carried over from the first game feel watered down. For an example, obtaining the super chips is far more streamlined, and there's really only one dungeon instead of several. That being said, despite its shortcomings, the game is still overall fun if the developers spanned on it in a way that they did with the first game. Grounded 2 has the potential to become something really special as it continues through its early access. Coming in at number 3 is going to be V Rising at a 4.5 out of 5. It is easily one of my favorite games I played all year. I put over 100 hours into it across 2 games, the standard mode and the brutal mode, and it constantly kept me hooked. From the tense early game survival where sunlight, hunger, and weak gear constantly work against you, to the massive roster of boss battles, each encounter feeling carefully designed with its own mechanics and abilities. That progression creates a loop that can be frustrating at times, but also incredibly rewarding. Every victory unlocks something meaningful and pushes you forward, encouraging you to adapt your playstyle. Even as someone who doesn't usually gravitate toward isometric games, V Rising completely won me over, and it stands out as one of the best survival experiences I've played this year. At number 2, we have Ghost of Tsushima at a 4.6 out of 5. Ghost of Tsushima is a cinematic masterpiece and in many ways a work of art. While I did have some issues with parts of the open world content itself, and the moment-to-moment combat is incredibly satisfying and always engaging, every duel feels deliberate, fluid, and rewarding, making even smaller encounters enjoyable. The story is where the game truly shines, telling a powerful tale of a man torn between honor and necessity, tradition and survival. The voice acting across the entire cast is excellent and brings real emotional weight to the characters that you meet along the way. On top of that, the island of Tsushima is filled with distinct biomes that constantly change and feel the scenery. keeping exploration fresh as you ride from location to location on horseback.
Oh, I heard you.
Yes?
Wait, let me grab my gun. You missed. Ow.
I did not miss.
Oh, I had to pay a medical bill. Oh, gross.
You have to pay a medical bill?
Yeah. It was probably really high because I was on drugs. Oh no, I couldn't really read the bill statement because I was on drugs.
Oi!
Revenge.
You just zoomed past me. Oh, fuck! My number one game is gonna be Schedule 1 at a 4.6 out of 5. It is my top game of 2025, and I placed it above Ghost of Tsushima mainly because it is a newer experience rather than one that came out a couple of years ago, but also because it completely hooked me with its gameplay loop. There's something almost addicting about starting from nothing, making your own product by hand, hitting the streets to sell it, and slowly building your way up through pure hustle. Over time, that small-time business operation grows into a full-blown criminal enterprise, complete with factories, workers, and underground networks that make you manage and expand. What really elevates the experience is the game's personality, the colorful cast of characters, the ridiculous situations you find yourself in, and the chaos that unfolds when playing with friends, all combined into great moments that are both hilarious and memorable. It is the kind of game that constantly pulls you back in for more, and it easily earns the top spot of this year. Now then, that is my list for my reviewed games of 2025. It was a much better batch this time around, not a lot of low score games, and the few that I had weren't really that bad. Speaking of, normally I also release these videos at the end of the year, with also an anticipated games list for the next year. Instead of that, I'm going to be posting a video on games that I continued to play after my initial review of them. So please make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want to see that video coming out next week. And until then, I'll see you next year with a new batch of games to play and review. Make sure you also sub to my gaming channel, Excalligator Gaming, if you want to see both gameplay footage of me fooling around, as well as with my friends in these games that I play and review. Until then, I'll see you next time. Florida Gator Man out.